welcome to this DevSecCon Germany meetup, right? So this is our second event of this format. So our idea is it's vendor neutral, right? It's of course it's organized by Sneak, but then it's vendor neutral. It's not a marketing salesy event. It's more really community oriented. It's part of the DevSecCon global community, right? It's an inclusive community that educates and enables developers in application security. That's the purpose of this kind of meetup series. So this is our second event. It's a monthly event. We try to run the series every month. We do have a website. It's called devseccon.com, where there's also a link to a Slack channel. So you're also invited to join the Slack community, ask questions there. Just about myself, I'm Matthias. I'm a solutions engineer at Sneak. I'm basically hosting the event, but most importantly are our great speakers. So I would like to hand over to Juan.
Yeah, so thanks for joining the talk. After all, today I want to share something I've been researching, also because I'm kind of involved, how to protect Node.js projects of dependency confusion attacks. So, oops. Okay. So, first of all, a bit about me. My name is Juan. I'm from Spain. I'm a senior front-end engineer at eBay. More specifically to eBay Classifieds Group. And I'm also open source maintainer in my spare time. I do actually contribute in the Verdaccio project. If you don't know the project, I will introduce that in a bit. I live in Berlin since almost 2 years. And I'm also a security amateur because I'm just learning every day as a developer. I like to travel, so I really miss that a lot. That picture is from actually from Hallstatt in Austria. So I've country live for a few years. Yeah, so you can follow me on social networks if you like, mostly on GitHub. So this is more or less the agenda I have prepared for today. So we'll go 3 main areas: what's dependency confusion, and actually how you can protect your organization and projects from this kind of attack. And then we will check how actually you can enhance the registry setup using Verdaccio registry. So what's dependency confusion? And I found actually this definition, which is perfectly defined. It's a technique which known as substitution attack, which allows 3 actors to sneak malicious code inside of private code repositories by registering internal library names and public packages registries, or also known as indexes. So let's go step by step. Alex Pearson is a security researcher which has disclosed this simple attack early this year, and his article in Medium. So the link is right there. And he described how simple is actually publish a package in the public registry with some malicious code, and this package can be downloaded by companies which are using registries and they are not properly configured. This attack actually affects several languages, but today I will focus only on JavaScript and Node.js. And in his article relates, he was trying to ethically hack PayPal. And another security researcher from him actually found this GitHub on GitHub, this snippet of code, which it was a mix of public packages like Express, mixed with private packages, which he realized that they were not published in npm.js. So what might happen if you publish a package over npm.js and this is meant to be used internally? And if you're using a private registry in your company or your startup or by yourself, which package will have priority if it has a higher version? And this is a question which actually find out really key for this attack. But first of all, I would like to explain actually how a package manager resolves a dependency. And this is the usual. This is basically the usual workflow when you are installing a package from npm.js. For instance, let's imagine the registry is npm.js. First, what does the package manager is just ask the registry, giving the metadata for this specific dependency. Let's imagine jQuery. And the registry actually will resolve to only two possible options. It will return manifest. I'm saying metadata because also manifest and argument are alias of the same thing. So I will use manifest from now on. And there is it will return manifest or source 04. And then is the key. So the package manager will get this manifest. And the manifest is basically historical and like a huge JSON file with all the historic version of the package has is published, which another additional info. So the npm the package manager, it will resolve this information. It will decide, okay, I need this package, and then it will start to fetch the tarball, which the tarball is part of the manifest. It's a UL which is inside of that. And this is 100% just because it's going to be, since the distribution is inside of the manifest, then it will start finishing the workflow, fetching the tarball. And it does this for every dependency when you're installing your packages. But these get more complex when you add integration, a private and proxy registry, like most of the companies are doing right now, like Verdaccio, many others in the market. Based on your project configuration, the package manager will resolve the higher version. And if the package is not in the registry, it will look it up for the upstreams, in this case, npm.js, which is the most common one, because if you are looking for Express or Webpack, most likely you need to fetch from the public registry. And in this way, this is how Alex managed. He understood this and he managed to infiltrate to the internal builds, and we'll see how actually he did it. But there is another piece in this puzzle, which is the package manager as well, which is actually the one which runs the scripts. And for that, there is a lifecycle scripts, which are executed every time you install a package. Actually, Alex took advantage of the preinstall script, which some maintainers told me there are alias of install and post install. These kind of scripts are quite common use when has created several security incidents for typo squatting attacks. Here we can see an example where I found in this article, package has been tagged, which they are trying to do a typo squatting attack. For remediation of this, all the package manager, they have this flag, which is ignore scripts. This is quite a recommendation when you are running in your CI. Most likely you will need those scripts, so you can add this flag, so then you won't have to run these scripts and you will be a bit more secure. But there is another piece in this big puzzle, and is how once he was inside of the build machines, he needed to prove the point, which I call, okay, I actually managed to access this computer. That how can I take information out? And for that, he used DNS data exfiltration, which is a way to exchange data between two computers without any direct connection. He did set up a DNS server on outside of his network by himself. He started to publish packages in several registries. Let's imagine only in npm, I think there were like 50 or 60 packages. And once this package was downloaded to the build server, the preinstall, it was running the script, and this script was actually gathering data from the build server because he only want to prove his point. He managed to access to these build servers. And when he was doing the DNS query, he was attaching this information, I think encoding to the DNS query and sending the data out of the internal network. And then with this information, he managed to notify to the security teams. He actually made a successful infiltration. So during my research, I found projects, a project named Confuse, which is an utility to report any of your dependencies are not claimed in public registries, either a scope or not a scope. And so you will get an actually useful outcome where it's a good way to start to protect yourself, so you can actually check whether your projects are really right now vulnerable or not of this attack. So one part of this big problem, or one piece of this kind of attack, it was the private registry. And this is actually how he actually managed to access to the internal networks. And I actually contributed one of them, which is Verdaccio. And Verdaccio is a lightweight Node.js proxy registry. It's really simple to use. Actually, you need only to install the global package. Pretty much you're set because you still install. So you can actually modify the configuration and only run the command Verdaccio, and that's all. Also, you can use Docker images. So, but here I'm just focusing on Node.js. And I'm pointed out this configuration file because it's a YAML, and it's a huge configuration file. But I want to focus only in the important part, for this kind of attack, which is the access. There is a package section in the configuration file where you define all the patterns and how they when the package manager is asking for one registry, it matches this package name, and you apply several rules, either for publishing, access, or for proxying outside. By default, this is the default configuration. So if you can see, when you're publishing a package, you need to be authenticated. The same for unpublished. But when you are accessing the package, if you are publishing private packages, then the access is open. And this is something we will actually, I will recommend a fix for this in a bit. And also something you need to notice is by default it's proxy to npm.js because this is the default registry is in the configuration. So the next step is actually protect your project, because it's the first is where developers actually can do something really quick. And for that, I want to show some data. According to the GitHub state in 2020, and they made analysis of the whole packages ecosystem, and JavaScript is by far the one that has more transitive dependencies. And most of the developers actually only check in the surface, which is the package.json file, but we don't check inside. And if you see in this graph, there's tons of packages which are in the tree and we don't check them. And if you see the open source security survey, when they were asking who should be the responsible for security, the 85% think the developers are responsible for this. And this is one reason, because I'm bringing here some recommendations for your Node.js projects. Actually, you can implement them, and it's really simple, and it actually will protect your projects basically from this point. The first thing you have to do is develop naming convention in your projects using scopes, and this is maybe the most important thing. Even if the package is meant to be private, you don't know whether this package might be interested to be published at any point. So try to scope all the packages which are meant to be internal, so you can make a clear difference between the public ones and the private ones in your package.json. Also, it's recommended to register the scope of your organization in npm.js if it's available, because anyone can actually do it for you. And if you are creating a company, if you have an organization, check if your scope is available and register that. Because if it's not available, then you need to ensure your internal practices are really strict, because the minimal mistake, you might get a package in your internal network. Another way to improve or enhance the nprc file. This file is meant to be on the root of the project, and it basically tells to the package manager, okay, I want to do something different. The best way is adding a scope and the registry for each scope. This might get a little bit verbose if you have a lot of scopes in your project, but it's the best way. Actually, it's also recommended to have multiple registries, one for internal and then separate one for the external. You can use Verdaccio for this because it's really lightweight, but if you want to only use internal and then just leave the external directly to internet, then you don't need the last line of this file. And all the package managers support this. So basically the same configuration with a little difference. If you're using Jarberry, there is some difference in the configuration because it's quite brand new. So you can check in the Verdaccio website how to do it, or you can check their website because they are really good informed there. Another way to protect yourself is also using the nprc file, but in your root file, in your home directory. Because if you're creating a new project and you are trying to download a package for your company and you don't have the npm.rc file, or you don't set up that in the early stage, you will start to download for npm.js by default. And this is, you might download a package which is not meant to be in your internal, in your computer, and then you hack. So set up this, every computer, every developer should have this, if you have a registry in your organization, and it's the best way to protect yourself. So every time you run install, they will run through, they will go through the internal registry. Another way to improve security is following the semantic versioning is good practice. I meant if you follow the best practices, it will happen. The first thing is pin your dependencies to mitigate forced upgrades and downgrade attacks. Why? Because if you saw in the first example, when the package manager is solving the version, if you have, for instance, caret, it will actually try to find a new minor changes or patch changes. When I say minor, is the number in the middle of the 7, for instance. It will try to download 7.1. And this is the way which actually the proxy is trying to get the highest version. If it's not in the internal registry, it will go outside. And this is how Alex managed to infiltrate the internal builds. And this is the default, actually, this is the default setting when you're installing a package like npm install jQuery. So you need to pin the dependencies for yourself, or you can actually use some flag, which actually they allow you to save the exact number in your package.json. If you don't want to, if for some reason you need to update patch, you can use tilde, which is also available, but also will actually try to fetch the newest version. Don't use wildcards like in Jest. Don't use that. I mean, unless you are using mono repos, something like that, maybe it's useful there, but the wildcard will resolve whatever. So it's not a recommendation to have it there. Also, don't use tags, because by default, the latest is the latest version. This is this tag, which is default in all registries, and it will fetch the latest one. And this is just a word which can mutate in the server all the time. So even you can fetch breaking changes in your project. So like I said, the best way is just pin the dependencies and just use this option when it's needed. Another way, which has been out there for a while, is using lockfile. All the package managers, they have lockfile. This is an example from Yarn 2, which basically, if you see, it's a manifest of dependencies for the project, which specifies the exact version to be installed, and either in development machines or production environments. And this will create deterministic installations. And this file has to be committed. It's really recommended if you have a web application, because all developers will have the same versions in their computers. So they won't have the problem of it works in my computer. And if your case, if your project is vulnerable right now because your registry is not correctly set up, this will avoid new dependencies are being installed from commands like npm update. If you run npm update and you have a log file and all the dependencies are pinned, then you won't have new dependencies on your side. But when you're running installations in your automated environments, then we can use something else. We can use, in combination with the log file, frozen installations. And for these, the package managers, they have different naming conventions. npm, for instance, has npm CI, which keeps some steps and is supposed to be faster than the npm install package log only. This will ensure all the installations will fail in the CI if there is a difference between the log file and what you have in the package.json. For Yarn, you have also plug and play. And if you're using Yarn 2, they have 0 installations, which ensure restricted immutable installations, which basically they commit on the repository all the dependencies in a zip file, something new from Yarn. And there is no communication with the registry at all. So this is the best way to don't get hacked if you want to ensure the installation it don't get infiltrated or something. And also PNPN supports plug and play since the version 5.9, so you might check it out if you like. there are tons of improvements you can do to your project. Actually, Liran and I, we wrote an article 2 years ago about how to improve your publishing, how to secure the npm.js accounts, and there's a tons of improvements. So actually, I invite you to check this article. It's really nice, and it's still all these rules applies to today. Proxying, because private registry is also proxying, and proxying has a lot of advantages. If you see Mael, the Yarn maintainer for Yarn, and you can't rely on external services because they might fail anytime. And also, aside of the have private registry actually will catch dependencies, so it will actually ensure your builds won't fail. But also, it might have some disadvantages if it's misconfigured. Like I mentioned before in the package access section, to ensure security in Verdaccio, you need actually to create a scope packages sections for each of your private packages scopes. Also, you need to change the access to authenticated. So anyone which is not meant to use this package is not accessing your source code. And also remove proxy from the package sections, because this will avoid this the registry lookup outside. Also, the Verdaccio actually merge the manifest from outside with the one that's inside. So remove these proxies is really, really important. And this is defined in the best security practices in the website and the Verdaccio website. Also, you want to expose private names and the external sources because are meant to be private. So you don't want anyone knows how are they named. To improve the mitigation, there are also some tools which I've been using for quite a while. The lockfile is important, but also it's a vector for attack if you don't audit this file regularly. If you have done some points, some code reviews, someone actually updating dependencies, you will see the log file has been updated. And this file usually is collapsed in the GitHub. So you need to expand it, and then you have thousands of lines, which most of the developers won't check because it's boring, right? But you can automate this. You can actually use locally linked, which actually will validate the protocol, will validate the host, and this actually will ensure even if you're not being attacked for typo squatting attacks, because you can actually mutate the log file without changing the name of the dependency. And I already proved this, and it works. So you need to actually monitor this file quite often. If someone changed the log file, you need to check that. Even if since PNPM5 and Yarn 2, they don't have the resolve field anymore in the package log, which this basically it's a field with the URL of the tarball. PNPM7 still have this, and then this tool is still useful for those who are using PNPM old versions of Yarn 1 and NPM 7 or minors. So yeah, I totally recommend to use this. Dependency confusion is still a threat because it's not over. I mean, Alex managed to infiltrate several IT companies that still there are a lot of packages being published, trying to find their next victim. I got this screenshot from a security researcher article from Sonotype, and they are actually explaining there are a lot of copycats being published all the time. So these packages, for instance, are being blocked, but they are waiting for the next victim. And here you can see if some developers see in the name module Skype or PayPal or something like that, they will think they are reliable packages, and they should be scope. If they are in scope, we need to notify someone, hey, please scope these packages because it's the best way to ensure they have a reliable origin. So let's recap a little bit all the improvements. So first, you need to revisit your Node.js project configuration, the npm.rc files, and so on. Also, I recommend to revisit your private registry configuration. Like I mentioned, Verdaccio is really simple to fix if you are not following the best practices, but also all others other private registries are being affected, and all of them, they have articles which explain what they have to do in order to improve the security. Also, revisit your automation environment setup. Your package manager configuration on Jenkins file, for instance, check whether they are using the right settings. They're relying only the log file, and monitor the failures on install, because most of the time when the developers see the build is failing because the package manager is throwing an error, we need to check why. Because maybe you are trying to use a package is not meant to be there. Maybe you are using a package with the same name but with different code inside, and the build is failing because of that. So this is the first thing you have to do when actually something is failing there. Check exactly why, and use a log file. It's really important, and pin your dependencies. It's the best way to protect yourself for now. There are tons of articles I collected. Maybe I have more, but this is maybe the most important ones. If you want to dive into this topic, if you want to see how to mitigate in other ways and read more deeply about them, go through all these articles. Are really nice, really important, on how to protect your company, organization, or your own personal project, because this only not affect companies, also any developer. So thank you for listening to me. Like I mentioned, I'm maintainer of the Verdaccio project. If you want to know more about the Verdaccio project, just click in this link. I will share the slides later. You can follow me in the social networks you like. Also, there are more talks regarding Verdaccio. If you want to know more deeply what it does, I'll add a playlist right there. Or if you have questions, but maybe later, you can also find me in the chat verdaccio.org, which is a link for the Discord server. And we have channels in Spanish and English mostly, if you want to ask me, because I speak Spanish. Yeah, that's all. Thank you so much.